Boom. There we go. All right. So I'm Christopher Patterson. I'm here with AJ Walker, author of the Bond of a Dragon series. I've read the first two books. I'm working through the series right now as I'm also writing, but I really, really enjoy them. They remind me of a good coming of age epic fantasy story that involves all of the all of the things that a fantasy should involve, including dragons. So, um,
Yeah.
so anyways, AJ, when did you first realize you wanted to be a writer?
Yeah, so that's kind of a multiple part answer for me because I'm like really dyslexic, so reading and writing especially was kind of tough for me because I didn't really understand uh, how to do it growing up, and I was always really interested in stories and like I wanted to read books. My parents talk about how they would catch me, trying to read The Hobbit, and they would ask me what was happening in the book, and I couldn't tell them because I couldn't read really. Um, and going through high school, I definitely struggled with trying to get caught up with all the other students. And I remember when I started kind of catching on to it, I was telling some of my teachers that I wanted to start writing and try to write my own book. Um, and I was kind of always discouraged against it because of how poor my my English learning had gone up
Right.
to that point. But um, yeah, kind of as a little kid, always wanted to, make up my own stories. Definitely was a creative kid, and um, yeah, it wasn't until after college that I started actually writing. Yeah, I tried to write in high school. I wrote about 6 chapters of Bond of a Dragon, and gave it up pretty quick because I was young and really focused on trying to become, I was a wildland firefighter and was trying to make a career in a more physical job,
Got
and
it.
just didn't think I had the discipline to do it. And yeah, after a while, I was like, I'm gonna try and do it. And it took me about a year to write book one, and it's I'm coming up on almost 2.5 years, and I've got 4 books in that series done, and I'm almost done with 3 in a new series.
So in dealing with dyslexia, and I'm a high school teacher, so I've had students that have had dyslexia, and the process that they have to go through in order to understand whatever we're doing. What is your writing process different than you? Do you have to take extra steps? I mean, how do you now deal with that? And I mean, because your writing is, I mean, I think your writing is good. I enjoy your stories, and yeah. So, what does your writing process look like, especially having to deal with dyslexia on top of planning and creating a story?
Yeah, so I think it's probably the same process that most people take, but it just takes me, I think, longer to get through it. I always have to read things at least 2 times before it kind of processes right in my head. I'm a little bit slower with comprehension, but um, actually in high school I went through neurofeedback therapy, and it's this therapy that trains the synapses in your brain to react faster, with associating letters to what the words sound like, and what I can remember them visually in my head, because I definitely think in terms of visual thinking. Like most of the words I don't think of as letters. I think of like a shape or what it actually looks like. And so I think that definitely plays to my advantage in creativity with writing, because I kind of think like in a movie, kind of.
Yeah,
But
very cool.
yeah, as far as that neurofeedback therapy, I went from in high school. I went from a third grade reading and writing level when I was 16 to that, an average 16-year-olds in a couple of months.
Awesome.
Um, I I definitely still swap letters and get hung up on words that confuse me, but it just takes a little bit longer, I think. I have to read what I write out loud to myself, which I I can read at a decent rate now, but it's when I hear other people reading out loud, it's a lot slower for sure.
And are you a planner and an outliner, or are you a pantser? Do you just sit down and start writing, or do you plan things out?
The first book I completely pantsed, and then yeah, I just like sat down and I would just write, whatever was happening, and um, I I enjoyed that because I didn't know where the story was gonna go when I sat down, and it was always fun to create and come up with new ideas along the way. But
Got
then
it.
going back through it and trying to make it all line up and make sense, um, probably because I don't read quite as fast, just took so long and was a lot of effort. And so throughout those books in the Bond of a Dragon series, I learned kind of how to plot better and come up with a decent storyline. And I was also just kind of winging it on story ideas too. I didn't really take a whole lot of classes that taught story structure
Hmm.
and what you are striving for in a scene and in the development of the plot. And so I kind of, took to YouTube and podcasts and learned a lot about story structure. And throughout those series, I got better at plotting. And now I sit down and I outline the whole book from start to finish, all the major um, mile markers that are going to happen along the way.
Yeah.
And I don't break it down as far as each scene, but I kind of have like, okay, I'm going to have this book be, 30 chapters, and this is what I want to accomplish in each chapter. And I have, bullet points that I try to check off. And so I still kind of pants the chapter,
Got it.
but I definitely know where it's going by the end of it.
Right on. Yeah, I've recognized, I think, with my own writing that when I when I pants, I definitely get a story down a lot quicker. But then I got to go back, and then my editing is more intense as opposed to planning and outlining, which is tedious. It's a pain in the butt, but then my editing portion is less. So I guess it's 6 to 1, half dozen the other. It depends on what I guess what you want to
Yeah.
spend your time doing. And
Yeah. I guess it depends on like what your goals are. If you want to, just have fun with it, pantsing is awesome.
right, yeah. Yeah.
If you're
So,
trying,
no, go ahead, man. Sorry.
I was gonna say, if you're trying to hit a deadline and you want to, you know, cut out some steps along the editing process, definitely outlining helps.
Totally. Oh, yeah. Why fantasy? Why
uh,
fantasy?
yeah, I guess fantasy because it's kind of just always been attractive to me as like an escape from what's happening in the day to day.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was I was a lot I was always frustrated with trying to figure out why I couldn't spell things right in school, and being in Montana, just going outside and playing in the woods was, I feel like it lent itself to that medieval type of fantasy mindset where I'd go into the woods and pick up a stick and pretend it was a sword and just like pretend I was on my own quest,
Totally.
slaying dragons and stuff. So it probably stemmed there. My parents, they liked uh, fantasy as well. They weren't huge into it, but they, some of the first books that they had me try to read were like The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. Never, and that was, kind of what I was interested in when I was younger. So my dad and I would, practice reading all the Harry Potter books and all the Lord of the Rings books. And then when I was in high school, I read the Aragon series by
Okay.
Christopher Anthony,
Yeah.
I guess the Inheritance Cycle. And he's actually from Livingston, which is just over the hill from Bozeman.
Okay.
And I found out that he wrote that first book when he was 16, and I was about that age when I was reading it. And so I thought, if he can do it, I can do it. And
Totally.
that's when I tried to write Bond of a Dragon the first time.
Right on.
Yeah.
So, you said that you started Bond of a Dragon in high school, which I completely empathize with. My Some of my books are things that I wrote, doodled back in high school too, and so that's awesome. I mean, how do you come up with your ideas? And I feel like maybe more so than Arizona, where there's a lot of desert, which doesn't necessarily lend itself to that fantasy, that escape. But I'm sure having the nature that you're around helps. But what helps you come up with your ideas for your stories, and how do you do that?
Mostly I kind of just feed off of other books that I'm reading. I call reading my reading is listening to audiobooks, but
Oh, totally.
I I count that as reading, and I'm constantly, listening to fantasy stories and stuff. And I draw a lot of my inspiration from what other people have done, and I, think about like, oh, that was a cool idea for a character, or a setting, and what would my take on that be? Because like you give somebody, two words as an example, like here's the setting, what would you create, what would you have happen, and everybody would make something different. So
Right.
it's kind of, in high school with that starting Bond of a Dragon, I was thinking like, oh, the end of Inheritance Cycle I wasn't, the most stoked about, so I want to try to write my own Dragon Rider series.
Got it.
And yeah, definitely being outside here helps with there's a lot of cool mountains, and I try to get out and spend time, in the woods and exploring, and just, it seems like really simple. If I do really simple physical tasks, I come up with, like a problem to a plot in my story that I've been hung up on for a little while. And yeah, just getting out, and I don't know if it's the surrounding or just being kind of in a clear mind state helps for sure.
That's cool, and that's cool to hear. You hear so many authors talk about how they get motivated, whether it's through music or whatever, and it's to get another take on. You go out, you do something physical, it clears your mind, it helps solve problems in your plot and stuff. Is cool. And I mean, I think, I'm fairly active myself, and I think a lot of authors could stand to be a little more active, and we get stuck behind our computers so often. So that's
Yeah.
cool. Um, so what keeps you motivated as a writer? And speaking of motivation, was your family, or is your family supportive of your craft as a writer, as an author?
Yeah, my family's super supportive. Everybody in my family, and my wife is really supportive of my new career path too. Um, yeah, my motivation comes from just, I really want to uh, make something, create something on my own that I can, have support me, and not be showing up to a job where I have to work for somebody else. That's the main motivation for sure.
Right on.
But even if it never gets to that point, I'll still keep doing it because I enjoy it so much. Growing up, I would have never thought that I would like to sit down and write because it was so hard to do. But just not really having those constraints of somebody, thinking about how you have to follow a certain format and it's going to be graded and it has to be about a certain subject. Just writing what I want to write about and stuff that I think about anyway is is good motivation to try to make it into a good career.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and my family is super supportive. My dad, um, kind of, he grew up on a farm and was trying to be a farmer in North Dakota, and he uh, kind of there was a big farming bust in the 80s that he went bankrupt in with, and his dad had helped him out then, um, but that path didn't work out for him very well. He's a Delta pilot now, so I think he definitely wants to see me succeed in something that I'm passionate about. And my mom was an occupational therapist, and she's you know really excited that I've decided to use use my creative imagination to write and keep trying to get over and learning the English language.
Yeah.
And um, yeah, my wife's really supportive. All my sister is, my whole family, all my friends are like really happy that
Right.
I'm trying to do this.
Cool. Now, are you full time? Do you work do any have any other job? Or are you full time writer at the moment?
Yeah, at the moment I am, and it's I think because of where I'm living right now. I live in Columbus, Montana. It's kind of a small town away from the job market that I have a degree in. I have a degree in forestry.
Okay.
Uh, so because I was a wildland firefighter, I got my degree in forestry, and most of those jobs are in like the western part of the state, and I live in the south central part now. It's kind of right on the edge of the prairie, um, and I was driving in an hour to build houses when we first moved here, which was also a new job for me. But I'm to the point now where I was making as much with that job as I was just being at home. So I decided to put more effort into being at home, and while we live here, just take advantage of the quiet country town and put my fingers to the keyboard.
Very cool. Very awesome. Yeah, that's cool. I'm hoping. Yeah, I'm hoping. I'm hoping soon I can do the same thing. So that's awesome. Congratulations.
Well, thanks.
Um, you talked about some of the obstacles that you've had to overcome, and some of the sacrifices that you've had to make. So what? Are there other things that you've had to overcome to be able to write? I mean, it sounds like you've got a pretty supportive family, supportive wife, and then that's super important. You've had to overcome dyslexia. What are there other roadblocks that you've had to deal with?
Um, for the most part, no, which I feel very grateful for that. I was, in the situation that I'm in where I can, you know, go forward and pursue, you know, what I want to do, my dreams, with not much pushback from really anything other than my own um, mind.
Right.
But I definitely feel like in the beginning, I think I'm getting over it now. But in the beginning, I had some imposter syndrome where I was thinking like, why why does why am I qualified to publish this book, and who's going to read it? And I felt kind of awkward about like, if somebody reads it and they don't like it, then should I feel bad about that? Or but I'm over that now. I think I'm definitely to the point where I'm confident in my storytelling abilities, and I think, or I know that there's people that like to read what I write, so I'm gonna keep trying to do that.
Yeah, that's the tough part about writing, right? I mean, kind of number one, we got to have thick skin,
Yeah.
because especially with Amazon or Goodreads, people can throw up ridiculous reviews that have nothing to do with the story. It's whatever, and then um, yeah, I hear that. I hear that with just like you said, why are we qualified to publish and put something up? And so yeah, that's cool. Um, well, I mean, what do you have any last minute advice or little nuggets of information that that another writer could use to to start writing, a young person who they're just trying to get out? What advice would you give them?
I would give the advice uh, to write consistently. That was a big thing for me, was actually sitting down and writing 5 days a week, or if not 5 days a week, at least a certain word count a week. um, because if you don't have consistency in the beginning, then it's kind of hard to continue to get better, because uh, it's just like anything else, more practice and you get better at it. And um, yeah, just consistency with trying to write every day. um, and I would probably tell myself to write a few books, and then first, and then see which one was the best before I published it.
Right on.
Um, but I also think it's pretty cool just to see like the progression through the books as I've written them. Just kind of figuring out how to tell stories better, um, and definitely learning more about the craft um, of scene structures and story structure. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, AJ, thank you, sir. It was a pleasure getting to meet you face to face. And if someone's watching this interview, make sure you check out Bond of a Dragon. He's got 4 books out right now on Amazon. AJ Walker.